Welcome to the pre-taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city and introduce you to some of the people that have made this history and that are continuing to make history either here today or in the Metroplex. And we're just really honored today. We have a commander with us today. And Captain, it's just so wonderful to have you with us, and that is Stephen P. McMullin.
Yes.
M-U-L-L-I-N. And we want to welcome you to the dais today.
Thank you very much, Ruthie.
Yes.
It's good to be here.
Yes, we're glad to have you with us, and we're so excited to know that Navy Dallas is still in force, even though you have moved across the Tarrant County line and at the Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth. We feel a kinship to all of the young people that you serve and that serve the United States of America. So even with the closing of Navy Dallas, we've tried to keep in touch. And we just thank you so much. And Gloria Jean Detterman, who helps us, who is your Secretary of the World of the Joint Reserve Base, is always a joy to work with her and to fit into your schedule, because we really wanted to interview you on November the 11th during the time that it would have been a little bit more appropriate, but we didn't give up. We stayed right with Gloria Jean, and she said, well, you can have him on the 28th to pre-tape him for December the 5th. And so we want to thank you for the time. But we'd like for you to look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the real Stephen, where you were born, your parents' names, if you had brothers or sisters. Give us a little mini history, would you?
Well, I am the son of a career military officer.
How wonderful.
And that, in fact, probably was my inspiration. I have a tradition of service in my family. As a matter of fact, not only was my father a Navy doctor, but my mother was a Navy nurse. And my father graduated from Jefferson Medical School and chose to be commissioned in the military,
yes,
and then served 26 years of active service. And retired in 1962 when I was just a little guy. And my mother was a naval officer herself, a Navy nurse, who they met. They worked in the same unit together. And in those days, when you got pregnant, you had no choice but to leave the service, which she did.
Service, yes.
But she remained fiercely proud of her service to our country.
You bet.
And was a lifelong member of the Navy Nurses Corps Association, and probably was more instrumental in pushing myself towards the military, I guess, than even my father was. My father certainly thought it was a great thing. My mother thought it was an even greater thing to serve the country. So I was born in Philadelphia, where they met,
right,
and then, of course, traveled around the country with them until they retired. His last duty station was at the Naval Air Station in Key West, Florida. And prior to that, we had lived in Hawaii. He served at Tripler Army Hospital. And that's where I acquired my temperate climate. I don't like to be much further north than we are today. And having lived there, when my father retired from military service, he settled in Southern California. And for many years, that's what I called home. I graduated from high school in there and went to college at the University of Southern California, and was a member of the ROTC program there, and that's how I attained my
Do you have
commission.
any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother, one brother who's 6 years younger than me. It's Gerald.
All right.
And yesterday was his birthday.
Is he in the military?
No, he's not. He's a teacher. He and his wife are both teachers.
How wonderful.
Yes.
That is great. And they live where?
They live in the Bay Area, in the East Bay and
Okay.
Castro Valley, California.
All right. Now, when you were a young person in school in California and went to elementary school and on up into middle school, did you have any favorite teachers that really inspired you, probably not as much as your dad did, to be successful in life and to apply yourself well?
I'm sorry to say there wasn't any teachers. I think probably the biggest influence outside of my parents was my high school football coach.
Oh, great.
Robert Stengel, Bob Stengel.
All right.
And he taught us a lot of things, lessons in life and athletics, working together as a team, being disciplined, working hard to get a goal that you want, and getting knocked down is okay.
Yeah.
Getting back up is even more important. And those were the lessons he tried to teach us. And you know, if you apply those things to life, you're going to be a success, and that's what he tried to instill in us. And of course, I was getting the same message at home from my parents.
Yes.
So if two people are telling you, it's better than one.
Double-edged sword, wasn't it?
And of course, in those years, most of us aren't listening to our parents very well. So parents love it when they've got somebody else on the outside who's trying to instill the same values that they would like to, that you refuse to listen to when you're a teenager.
In football, what'd you play? Position?
Well, I was second string everything about that.
That's all right.
We went to a small Catholic boys' school and very, very small program. So I had the opportunity to play a variety of positions. Played a little running back, played a little quarterback, played a little split end, all the defensive back positions. Whenever anybody was hurt, I was there.
Going on into college in Southern California, what did you choose as your major and why?
Well, actually, my first year, I went to the University of San Diego.
All right.
And decided to join the military. And unfortunately, San Diego, a major Navy town, did not have an ROTC program at that time. They've corrected that since. And so I transferred to the nearest university that offered an ROTC program. And it took me to University of Southern California. And I guess I was more focused on naval aviation and flying than I was in trying to figure out what I was going to do.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I was actually an undeclared major for a long time, and then finally somebody said, the easiest thing for you to do right now with the classes you've taken is to major in history. And I ended up with a degree in history and a minor in international relations.
Oh, that is wonderful. After college, what?
Well, after college, essentially I was commissioned the day that I graduated.
All right.
I spent about 6 weeks in the San Diego, Los Angeles area prior to reporting to flight school. And went through the flight school program, spent some time mostly in Pensacola, Florida, in that area, and then graduated, received my wings in July of 1979, and headed on out to San Diego.
And flew your favorite of all planes.
Yes, my mistress for 17 years, the F-14 Tomcat.
Yes.
Made famous by the movie Top Gun, of course.
Yes.
And it was a great thrill.
Yes.
I still look back on it very, very fondly.
Yes. And how long has it been since you've been the commander of a Tomcat?
Well, I left the squadron on March 8th, 1996 was my last flight.
Yes.
So, and then 2 days later I gave up command of the squadron.
Yes, and that was tough, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was tough. All right, and some of the places that you have been assigned to following that?
Well, since leaving San Diego, well, when I got to San Diego, of course, I spent close to 13 years in San Diego.
Wow.
I was home ported there.
That's a record, isn't it?
Oh, no. In fighter aviation, we had the luxury of enjoying the opportunity to either stay at Miramar or Oceana, Virginia, which were the east and west coast fighter bases for the Navy in those days. And you could spend a long time there. Now, you would go out and do your cruises, and I had the opportunity to make both a Western Pacific cruise and came back and picked up a brand new carrier at the time, the USS Carl Vinson, and made her maiden cruise, which took us out through the Caribbean and the Mediterranean and then around the Horn of Africa, delivered her back to California then. So we spent some time away, but essentially when you came home, we called California home.
As a history major, that was exciting. That maiden voyage and all of this, you could document that and write a wonderful book.
Yes, and it was fun to be overseas and things because I think always secretly in the back of my mind, I think I majored in history and international relations because I gave thought to doing a minimum amount of time in the service and going to work for the State Department or the Foreign Service.
Yes.
And using that military experience and then the education and having had the exposure to overseas and different cultures. But again, I was having too much fun flying airplanes and was quickly dismissed that thought.
Yes. You have a beautiful wife that I met recently at the marker dedication for the Hensley Field. And Chris should have been with us today, but she is detained. And so tell us how you met Chris, and do you have others in your family?
Yes, this continues the Navy legacy. My wife was a Navy nurse as well.
Yes.
And we met in San Diego after she completed OCS, about 6 days after she reported to San Diego on her first duty station. And after about 2 years of dating, we ended up getting married.
Yes.
So we've been coming up on 18 years, and we have 3 children.
Congratulations, but name the children.
The oldest is Kevin. He's a senior here at the Fort Worth Independent School District out at Western Hills High School.
All right.
My daughter is a sophomore at Western Hills. Her name is Kara.
Okay.
And our youngest is just turned 13,
Yes.
3 days ago now, is Keegan. And he's a 7th grader.
The dangerous age, isn't it?
Yes.
Does as he pleases. That is wonderful. Isn't it great how the young people of today have a better opportunity than we had when we were young?
Oh, yes.
Yes. All right. Now, we've met your family through your dissertation, but let's talk a little bit about, were you ever at Navy Dallas before you were assigned to the Joint Reserve Base? I think you were.
Yes.
All right. Tell us about that.
I came up here and reported in February of 1994 and reported as the executive officer of VF-201, the 14 Squadron that used to be stationed out there.
And who was
Navy
your
Dallas.
commander at that time?
My commander at the time, well, my squadron commander was Commander Rich Dodson, and the base commander was Captain Jim Cannon. I'm sure you remember.
You know he's a historian.
Yes, I do.
Oh, he is a marvelous historian.
So,
Okay. And you served Navy Dallas how long?
until I left there in March of 1996.
1996. And what happened to you in 1996?
In 1996, they sent me back to the Pentagon.
Oh, dear.
And
You
did my time inside the Beltway.
Uh-huh.
So,
Was it fun pushing a desk?
no.
I see.
You know, early in March, I'm the king of the world. I was the boss of an F-14 squadron. I got to
Yes.
fly when I wanted to and where I wanted to, and then a couple of weeks later, you're in the Pentagon, and you don't have anybody working for you anymore. And it was a little harder to find job satisfaction, but it was a great learning experience, and the people there aren't any different than any place else in the military. They're the kind of people you'd like to be around and serve with, and you're all there fighting a common goal, I guess, or trying to achieve a common goal, and that's to do the best that we can within the resources we have to provide the country the national defense.
It's a military family unit, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Y'all
Yes.
interface with each other. You have just a lot in common. Even though you're maybe from different parts of the country and different strata as far as other things are concerned. So in 1996, you went to the Pentagon for how long?
Well, I was there for a little over 4 years
and
until
then-
I came back here.
All right. When you got this assignment, tell me about either the joy or the sorrow of being assigned back down into the Texas area.
Well, Texas had been, perhaps at that time, our greatest tour. And the kids had very, very fond memories. And I will relate to you that while we lived in Southwest Arlington when I was here in the area,
Yes.
and we became closer to the neighbors there in a short 28-month period than we did to my neighbors in San Diego that I lived next to for 10 years. And,
Was
we're
it
still
because of
very
the
close.
children?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I just
Yes.
think that Texas is, quite frankly, a little more open and friendly. And,
Yes.
That even people coming from outside of the state as we did, I think are embraced, and you get right into the spirit of things and open up your hearts and just be neighborly. And so we were real happy when we got news to come back to Texas.
Okay.
And certainly I was thrilled because it's another great opportunity for me to command and, you know, a career milestone by any measure.
Oh, by any measure. And tell us a little bit about your base now, the Joint Reserve Base, how you've expanded it, how by joining all of these different units together using common supply rooms and et cetera, that you're saving money for the military, and the different units that you have under your direction. They're not under your command apparently, but tell us something about the Joint Reserve Base now as it
Yes.
stands.
Well, it's obviously very unique. It's one of 3 joint reserve bases we have in the country. There's also one in New Orleans, also led by the Navy, and there's one in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, which are led by the Navy. I think we will see more of them in the coming years. And the lessons that we're learning, I think, are paving the way for the other services to embrace this concept on down the line. The military has yet to come to grips with the fact that while we've had the downsizing, we still have too much infrastructure out there. We have too
Yes.
many bases, and we haven't reduced the bases as much as we've reduced the people and the material that we have. And we're an example of how you can efficiently pack everybody together. And it's had its growing pains, but everybody has had a spirit of cooperation that keeps us going right down the same path as we hit an occasional bump in the road. We've got 6 flying squadrons out there today. We have a Marine Corps KC-130 squadron, which are aerial refuelers. We've got a Navy and a Marine Corps Reserve F-18 squadrons. We've got an Air Force Reserve F-16 squadron. And we've got a Navy C-9 squadron, which is our logistics transport aircraft.
That's the big boy, isn't it?
That's the big boy, but they got rid of the last one here very recently, and we are waiting for the arrival in April of a brand new aircraft. It'll be a 737-700, very similar to the Boeing commercial variant,
Yes,
but it'll be configured with a cargo system that'll allow us to carry either passengers, cargo, or a mix, a combi configured airplane, if you will. And so those will be arriving. And then lastly, we have the Texas Air National Guard.
Are you going to have a big ceremony when that one arrives?
Yes, we are.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. And the Air National Guard is located there?
Yes, Texas Air National Guard. Colonel Bill Walker's commanding them out there, and we've got 8 C-130s out also.
Okay, all right.
So.
That is just a Duke's mixture, as my grandmother would say. Yes, yes. And the Joint Reserve Base, how many people do you have living on the site?
Well,
approx.
We have about 1,500 civilians. There's about 3,500 active duty military of all services on the base. And we bring in somewhere between 14 to 1,600 reservists each and every weekend.
On the weekends, too?
Yes.
As we have just demonstrated that they're doing at the old site of Navy Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. And what kind of opportunities are there for young people that want to get into the service?
Well, the opportunities are essentially endless in the military. I think that regardless of what it is you want to pursue, a career in law enforcement, a field of computers, a field of aviation, if you want to fly airplanes, if you want to drive tanks, it's all there. And
if you want to be a mechanic?
Yeah, if you want to be a mechanic, that's available to you as well. And it's not all just Navy, but we have essentially all services out there. And so if you have any family leanings like I did, or favorite uncle that you want to follow into the Marine Corps, we really don't care. We just we'd like to provide the opportunity. And to that end, we've been very open in supporting the JROTC programs here on the base. We run summer programs out there for them. We also have a detachment of the Naval Sea Cadet Corps out there. We support an organization called the Young Marines, young kids out there who come out and
wonderful.
Join us on the weekends, and been very active in a variety of ways. Also working with the Fort Worth Independent School District in a program called Vital Link to bring out some of their kids, give them exposure, and we run them through these things. We take them over to the trainer, we take them through the pharmacy if they want to look into that field of endeavor, let them see an x-ray machine, take them over to the different areas, supply, logistics, out to the flight line, let them go into the radar rooms, take them up in the tower, and give them an opportunity to see the broad spectrum of opportunities that are in the military service.
That is a real show and tell. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
If that doesn't inspire them to want to do something like that, because when they do get in the military, don't they have advantages educationally?
Yes. All the services offer a college program, if you will. Typically will pay 75% of your tuition, and they have obviously the Montgomery GI Bill and other educational benefits that are available to you. And the education is there, and some people's circumstances don't permit them to find any other way to pay for their college education.
That is true.
And so the military certainly is one of the ways that's available to people to go out, give some time and service to their country, and then hopefully get some education back.
After the Joint Reserve Base, what?
That's a great question, and I don't know at this time. I expect that I have one of two options that are looming real large is a return to Washington, D.C., or to go back to the Reserve headquarters in New Orleans. And those are probably the two most viable options for me.
And you wouldn't dare say on television what your favorite would be, because that isn't appropriate. But
well, I might.
but I know that New Orleans is that wonderful climate that you prefer.
Yes, yes. I was in my 40s when I shoveled snow for the first time in Virginia, and I have no desire to do it again.
Go back and do that again. Do you still have your parents?
No, unfortunately, they've both
You-
passed away.
Both have
Yeah.
soon left this world. Well, I was going to ask you about what kind of a son that your mother and father would think of you now if they could see you as the commander of the Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth. Wouldn't they be excited?
Oh, I'm sure they would be. They were both very pleased, of course, that I followed them into the Navy. And, you know, my father lived long enough to see me do quite a bit of things. I mean, they were there for my winging ceremony. They were there for a good part of my career in San Diego, since they were only an hour up the road at the time. And my mother was able to make both my change of command ceremonies, incoming and outgoing, here in Dallas.
Yes.
When I was at the air station and stuff. So, you know, they knew I was headed in the right direction, and I'm sure they still keep an eye on me.
Do you have any aspirations for your children?
Well, I think every parent does.
Yes. I mean, military-wise.
Certainly. I would think that service to your country is, and I've tried to tell them, is whether you make it a short-term career and stay in the reserves, as a lot of people do, or you make it a full-time career, as I have, or whether you just spend the time and go out the door, there's benefits to be derived from that experience. And right now my son is applying for the Navy ROTC scholarship
Great.
program, as I had, and kind of following in my footsteps. We don't know anything at this time, but hopefully he'll be successful.
After the military, are you going to teach or just retire? Are you going to consult, or do you have any plans for the far, far future?
I have to tell you, we have not decided that. My wife and I oftentimes think of where we're going to go and what we are going to do, and because to us, home is where the Navy has sent us.
Yes.
We don't have a place we'd really need to settle.
Yes.
And I think, all things considered, if based on our recent experiences, we would stay here in this Metroplex area or in Texas. But I don't have any plans at this time. I'm kind of committed to the Navy for a few more years at least.
Yes. Would you have any desire maybe to teach?
I've thought of that, and probably one of my best tours in the Navy was I had the opportunity to be a flight instructor, which also included providing academic instruction. And I was at the F-14 replacement squadron, where we brought the young kids in after they just got their wings and taught them to fly the F-14 and train them up in the weapons systems. And being an instructor there was probably one of the better tours I had. And I really got a lot of satisfaction out of training these kids, you know, academically in the trainers, and then having the opportunity to fly with them as well.
Yes. Working with the civilians that you have in the Joint Reserve Base, like Mrs. Detterman, how dependent are you on your civilian workforce?
They are the glue that holds the place together. I can't say enough about them. They're the oft-forgotten part of the program that makes it a successful program. The military folks, we come and we go. Just about the time we probably get our feet on the ground and have a really good idea of what it is we're supposed to be doing, we take off.
Yes.
Then a new officer comes in, and the people that keep the place running, the people with the corporate knowledge, is more often not your civilian workforce. They have the corporate knowledge. They have a sense of ownership in the installation, a deep sense of pride, and every one of them that I've encountered out there is they're a blessing. It's no other word for it.
Good.
So,
They're going to be glad to hear that when we send them a copy of this interview, won't they?
I would hope so, but I've tried to express that to them in more venues than one.
Are you having the Blue Angels back again anytime soon?
Yes, our next air show will be scheduled in the spring of 2002, in the April-May time frame. And we certainly hope to get the Blue Angels. There's no guarantee, but they've typically been very supportive of coming to Fort Worth.
Oh, they really have.
They have really enjoyed the venue. They really enjoy the city, and we're looking forward to getting them back.
And when you have the air show, that is open to whom?
That is open to the public.
Okay.
And that'll be well publicized in advance, and it'll be free of charge. And in the air show is essentially, it's part of a recruiting tool for us to let people come out, see the different services, the airplanes they fly, and get some exposure to what it is we do for a living. And as well, to let the taxpayers see what we're doing with their money and how it's spent, and and the capabilities of the equipment that they've been gracious enough to give us.
Sort of open house?
Yes.
And we get to go into the hangars and,
Yes,
and touch the aircraft?
The aircraft typically will be, I think we had over 60 aircraft on static display last year, from vintage warbirds going back to World War II to the top-of-the-line fighters. Obviously, we had the F-117, our stealth fighter there this year. They keep a barrier around that one. You can't get too close to it, obviously, but
Yes.
Those that are less classified, if you will, are
Yes.
certainly available for people to come up and touch and take photos by. And
July the 8th was the change of command,
yes.
and that was very exciting. And since that time, you've just really gotten your feet wet. Are you glad you made the move?
Oh, yes, yes. Again, it's something I aspired to. Command and being in charge of people and having the opportunity to point them in a direction, if you will, that you think is right for the Navy, the country, and those folks, and then let them run with it, let them execute, if you will, the vision. And a lot of great people out there doing it. It's not a job for a micromanager.
No, it isn't.
It's way too big an organization, and I think part of my biggest job is being the public face, if you will, of the air station,
Yes.
doing the community relations events, talking to the public and trying to educate them on the military, on our reserve mission and how we're serving the country today, and being a cheerleader there at the home front on the base.
We have 2 minutes, really a minute and a half left on this interview, and I'd like for you to look out into your camera and let the young people know how exciting it's been to be a Navy officer and a commander, and that you're looking forward to some of them following in your footsteps.
Well, if I were to do it all over again, I think I would have pursued the same path. The opportunities of naval aviation, in my case, have been great. It's been a great ride. 23 plus years now, flew for 19 of them, and you know, education is the key. If I were to tell somebody out there today, I would, if you're able to, stay in school, get your college education, and if you're going to join the military, take advantage of the officer programs, and if not, you know, serve us as an enlisted person, but take advantage of the college education we have. Most of our middle management and our leadership in the senior enlisted ranks all today do have their degrees that they've gotten off times, and all of us will end up getting out of the military at one time or another. And education is as important out in the civilian sector as it is inside the military, and having that is going to make you a better person whether you stay in the military or whether you get out and serve the civilian community. So education is the key, and as I've alluded to earlier in this thing, there's endless opportunities in the military of all branches and all services, and it's done okay by me and certainly many other people that I serve with out there at the air station.
Wonderful. This entrance interview has just been delightful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
We're
It's been
just
great.
looking forward to hearing all the good things that are going to be happening at the Joint Reserve Base. We miss you at Navy Dallas, but we're tolerating that real well, I think, because we have a great kinship, and we say prayers for you all quite
Well, thank
often
you.
because everyone needs that. Thank you for being here, Captain.
It's been my pleasure.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.